Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2025. We're here for a work session, and our discussion item this morning is approval of the updated emergency management plans. I'm Kristen Stevens, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. With me is my fellow Commissioner John Kafalis, and Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally is on the phone this morning. We also have in the room Lorenda Volker, our County Manager, and we have several people from emergency management. We have Lori Hodges, who I believe will be kicking things off. She's the Director of Emergency Management. And we also have Sheriff Fayan. I'll let folks introduce themselves as they speak this morning. Good morning, and we'll turn it over to Lori.
All right, good morning. Lori Hodges, Director of Emergency Management. So the reason that we wanted to meet with you guys today is we'll be bringing before the board two of our emergency management plans to get re-signed. The sheriff and the board both sign these plans. They're the emergency operations plan, which is really the response phase of emergency management, and then the other one is our recovery plan. And so today is really just to talk about what are the changes, why are we bringing it to you for signature. This is the first time really since I started 11 years ago that we completely revamped the emergency operations plan. We've done updates to it over the years, but with Camille's help, Camille kind of took it from scratch and kind of rewrote our plan, and we also updated the plan to more align with how we actually do business in the Emergency Operations Center. So that's what we're going to talk about mostly today. So for the Emergency Operations Plan, in the past, I gave you guys a bunch of handouts, and sorry, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you don't have some of these handouts. You have the two plans, though, so I'll let you know if there's a page number on one of the plans. So the first handout is from the Recovery Plan, page 38. And it's just a look at the emergency support functions and recovery support functions. It's this document here. This is our old plan. So what we have done in the past is at the federal, state, and local levels, they have organized plans with emergency support functions in the past, which if you think about an ESF, it's just a task that's done or a function. So firefighting is a function, transportation, communications, those are all functions. So we did have our plan organized around those 15, we had 16 of them, but 16 emergency support functions, and we had recovery support functions for our recovery plan that matched those. What we found in our EOC, though, is that when we are activated, we don't activate in a silo. It's not like transportation works alone on transportation issues. Alexander Mountain Fire is a really good example where we had to get a group of people, a very diverse group of people in the Emergency Operations Center together to solve a utilities concern before the problem actually occurred. So that involved utilities providers, it included Road and Bridge and CDOT, it included our water providers because they were also impacted, a bunch of people in the room together. So we really work more in kind of this problem-centric lens instead of a function. Does that make sense to you guys? So when we updated the emergency operations plan, we decided we are no longer going to use emergency support functions just because it's just not how we do business in the Emergency Operations Center. So instead, we are moving to a lifeline model. So if you look at the new plan that I sent out, the EOP base plan, page 18, it's this handout right here. This shows you how we took all of those emergency support functions and how now they fit under a lifeline. So I'm going to go over the lifelines in detail for you guys today, but this just shows you a crosswalk of how many different emergency support functions are in each different lifeline. So you can see from the first page with law enforcement and security, fire services under there, search and rescue, government services, community safety, all of that's part of that lifeline as a component, but you can see multiple different functions are in there. So when we activate, we're going to have those different groups working together to solve problems within that law enforcement security lifeline or safety and security lifeline. Make sense? All right. So the big thing for today is this handout, which is the lifeline annexes. So this kind of shows you where we're headed. This it identifies what lifelines are, and really it's just these are the critical operations where if these go down, it's going to cause a number of cascading impacts throughout the community. So if a water system goes down, obviously now we have a much bigger population that's impacted. We have to have boil water alerts. We have to do all kinds of extra stuff. So we want to make sure that we keep lifelines functional. And that's what our main focus in the Emergency Operations Center is. And then that allows the sheriff and all of the people in the field to be able to do their jobs to mitigate whatever the threat is, okay? So within this, it shows you, under the community lifeline components, there's 7 different lifelines. Safety and security, food, water, shelter, health and medical, energy, communications, transportation, and hazardous materials. And then under each one of them, they each have a slide that shows you all of the different components that exist within each lifeline. As I mentioned, for safety and security, you know, there's a bunch of stuff under that that people might not think about, like basic government services, continuity of operations, all that fits under safety and security. And then that community safety too. So how do we evacuate and shelter in place those folks? So each of these different slides will show you the components in each lifeline that we're going to focus in on as an emergency operations center, again, to ensure that emergency responders can do their job, and then that we keep these critical functions healthy. So I want to stop there. Any questions about this?
Questions? Commissioner Kafalis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Lori. Of course, what you're sharing with us makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering what was the catalyst or perhaps the series of events that prompted all of you to make this shift now rather than, I don't know, 5 years ago?
Well, the lifelines are kind of new. But we have actually, in our Emergency Operations Center, as we've been building up how we do, like every time we activate, we learn from it and we change what we do and make it better. As we've been doing that, we've actually been working in this model for quite some time. Our plan just hasn't been updated to show that. So we wanted to just bring the plan up to how we already do business. And that's really from, you know, Cameron Peak, the lessons that we learned from that, and then Alexander Mountain. We just learned that we do this work group model more, where we bring in the right partners to solve a specific problem instead of each functional area just doing their own thing. And we've done that in recovery since the beginning as well. So with recovery, I don't know if you guys remember that organization chart where we had those 9 different work groups for Cameron Peak Fire. The work groups were based upon a problem, unmet needs, or maybe it was economic health, or maybe it was human services. So those needs had a group of people from a number of different departments and agencies that worked towards that problem. And that's just how the EOC has run in recovery since, I don't know, since at least Cameron Peak or COVID, because COVID was a very different problem too. So we had to have different people in the room for that. So we've just learned that the problems that we have to face right now are not the problems of the past. They're more complex. We're dealing with wicked problems and things that people haven't really had to deal with. So we create where we get the right people in the room. We give them what that problem is. They brainstorm it. They figure it out. It seems to work really well for us. So bringing our plans in alignment with a more flexible and fluid approach just makes sense to us. So any questions from you, Sheriff?
Nope.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Let me ask Commissioner Shattuck McNally any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lori, I appreciate you referencing the pages. I have it all printed out in front of me, and so I'm following along. I'm just curious, maybe you said this, forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat yourself. As the OEM in this regional plan, are other OEM offices and municipalities following with a similar kind of approach or have updated their plans to kind of align with this? I'm curious. And I wanted to state I completely understand and see the need for aligning the plan to what you're already doing, and I fully support that. I think it's great and good job, Camille. But I'm wondering how our partners are aligning with that.
So the City of Loveland and City of Loveland and Windsor are in our building, and they utilize our emergency operations center. So they'll use the same approach that we do. I'm not sure if their plans have emergency support functions or lifelines in them. I also don't know City of Fort Collins. I don't know if they utilize emergency support functions. However, they've been in our EOC multiple times, so they kind of know how we structure it. So I don't see that we're going to have any continuity type problems with them. But we did put in the plan this crosswalk, though, to really show people how each of the emergency support functions, what its name is, and how it fits into a lifeline to try to help people. So if they do use the ESF model, it shows them how it fits into the various lifelines. So I think that we're okay there. But once we get this plan approved and signed off by you guys, I'll send it to our partners. And then really they then decide how does their program then flow up into the county program? Because eventually a municipal problem, if it becomes a county problem, ends up coming to the county EOC anyway. So we'll work in whatever environment we're in. We're used to the emergency support functions. So if we go and we support City of Fort Collins or we support Johnstown or anybody else, we fit within whatever they do. But ultimately, I think that they're used to kind of how our EOC works now because we activate probably more than any other emergency operations center in the county. So they're used to kind of how we do business. I don't know, Cole, if you had anything.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
This is Cole Parrott too, and I just wanted to add that and the lifelines isn't necessarily something we made up either. This is like a model that's being taught, coming down from even the
FEMA.
federal level, FEMA. So there's a lot of other municipalities and counties and just jurisdictions across the nation going to this lifeline model, and it's being taught at conferences and things like that. So whether or not another municipality or county uses it, they're most likely pretty familiar with it. And then, like Lori said, that crosswalk is going to help us be able to work in each other's system regardless.
Yeah, that's a really good point. FEMA came up with the lifelines a couple of years ago. It may have been more than that now. Time flies when you're having fun. But I think that more groups are trying to go this way because they're realizing that emergency management isn't really about fighting the fire or the law enforcement component. That's really what emergency response does. Our responders, our sheriff's office. So emergency management is really about keeping the systems up and running to allow them to do their jobs. And so this just brings us into that space, I think, a little bit more. The State Emergency Operations Center has a lifelines dashboard that they look at to see where we're at statewide with the different lifelines. So they're definitely going to understand this terminology too. So I'm glad that Cole brought that up. Speaking of that, this is a handout that I don't know that you have, Commissioner Shattuck McNally. But I will send it to you. It's the slides with the new annexes. We went from probably this much paper with the different emergency support functions to this that we now have that shows kind of what is in each of these lifelines. But if you look at page 6 of that, of those slides, you're going to see a community lifeline status. It's the color-coded chart on the bottom. So when we determine lifeline status, on the top, it shows you some questions that we're going to ask. Are there disruptions within this service? How is the community impacted? Are there solutions that can be identified? Again, this was, we mentioned to you guys about Alexander Mountain Fire. A group of people got together prior to a problem occurring, knowing that if we didn't do something, we were going to have a major problem with fiber going up to Estes, which would then have caused the 911 system to go down. So that group of people was able to problem solve and brainstorm prior to it becoming a problem. They created the solution so that then when we did have the problem, nobody ever saw any kind of disruption. That's really what this is all about. So these questions help us figure out, one, do we have a problem now, but also, are we going to have a problem with this lifeline? And if we are, can we solve that problem? Or is there a backup plan? And then what is that plan of action? Who are the resources that we're going to use for that plan? And then how do we go about causing that solution? So those are some of the questions. But then on the bottom, you're going to see we have a new GIS person, Ramim, who started in January. And his focus area is public safety. And so he has been working with Justin Weitzel within the sheriff's office on that MapLink project, which I'm sure you guys are aware of, which is a bunch of different components all together that we can bring in for greater situational awareness. One of those is a common operating picture dashboard, which I'll talk about, but also Ramim is now working on a lifelines dashboard. So we're going to actually have in our emergency operations center at all times what the status is of each of the lifelines, and then they'll be color-coded according to this lifeline status here, which just shows us very quickly if something's red, it means we need to really be focusing on it. It means there are impacts now. If it's yellow, it could be something that we're seeing could be an impact. Green is everything's good and go. And then administrative is really if we're going to use it for an exercise or something. So you don't need to worry about that. And then unknown is typically at the beginning of an event, everything's going to be gray. And it's going to be up to us to be working with everybody in the field to determine what's the status of each lifeline and what are our different impacts. So this will be good for you guys as well because we'll be able to give you guys a good status of where's the community as a whole looking and what are we doing to try to solve those problems. And so that lifeline dashboard, I was trying to get a screenshot before this meeting, but I wasn't able to. But I did give you guys, and again, Commissioner, I will send this to you as well, but it's just the the operations dashboard. This, Justin Weitzel, Ben Butterfield, I was about to say Butterlink, and I knew that's wrong. Ben Butterfield with Lita and myself. I wrote this. I wrote up some stuff that I wanted on a dashboard up on a whiteboard. Ben Butterfield went down and saw it, took a picture of it. Justin asked him to do a dashboard. He took that picture that we had on the wall and he created a dashboard. So this is the new common operating picture dashboard that will be in the Emergency Operations Center. But as you can see, it has a lot of really good quick data. It has any watches and warnings that we currently have, what is our incident cost, the evacuation status, how many people are evacuated, how many structures are evacuated, which ones are affected, shelters that are open, other facilities that are like, where's the incident command post, where is staging, and then it's going to have the incident map up for us, which is going to show those different evacuation areas. So this is going to be really good for both the field and us in the EOC. We all use this data and we get questions about it all the time. But this is just one example of the dashboarding features that we're working on. I talked to you guys before about the need for some dashboards. So the Lifelines dashboard is the second one. It's in production, I guess I would say right now, where they're working through the tweaks of it and trying to get it finalized. But those are two really good situational awareness tools that we'll have available to us to give really quick data to our Emergency Operations Center personnel. But it's all going to be based around these changes that we've made to the plans, the recovery plan and the EOP with the Lifeline components.
Lori, can I ask, are those public-facing dashboards or are those internal use?
These are going to be for responders.
Okay.
We have talked about the need to have a public-facing dashboard of some sort that can go out. We have a link that we can do through ReadyOp where we can send out a dashboard that has all that public information in one stop for everybody. So we did talk about that as well. And I think I mentioned in a previous meeting, but I might be wrong. We created it's like a form, but it's where you can just click on a link and you get all of the current situation reports and everything and all the current plans. We also talked about doing that from a public-facing perspective too. What's the public stuff that people can then click on the link and get the current situation report about what's going on? Obviously, there's stuff that we don't share with the public during an event because, one, information's coming in so quickly that we have to make sure that the information is correct. We don't share damage information until we actually reach out to those people who have damages because that's just, common decency, I think. So we do have some rules around some of the stuff that we share. If there's fatalities, obviously it goes through the coroner's office. So we don't want to share everything that's going on in the EOC, and we don't want to impede what's happening in the field for the emergency responders. But a lot of this stuff that's on this operations dashboard is public information. It's, where are the shelters? What's the current National Weather Service status? Some of that. But some other stuff, though, again, it depends on what the incident is. And if it's a law enforcement sensitive incident, then we obviously lock down more stuff until we get the permission from the sheriff's office to share that information.
Thank you. No, that makes sense. Obviously, we don't want, information going out too early when it's not been, vetted and it could be troubling to people. So I just wondered if, how.
Yeah, the more that we can share with the public, the better, because the public these days wants information right now. And they want it accurate. And those two things don't happen when we're in the very beginning of an incident. There's just too much happening and it's too dynamic. So trying to get that good information out to folks, we do think it's important, but we also want to make sure that it's accurate, And then the public information officer with the jurisdiction having authority, they're really responsible for what's the information going to the public. So we don't really do a lot of public messaging from the Emergency Operations Center anyway until we get to recovery, because we're then the lead for public information. Really what we do is we support the lead jurisdiction in public information management, and whatever they send out, we push it out for them. So there's not a lot of stuff that in the EOC we create to send to the public. Most of it is repurposed from either the sheriff's office PIO or whoever the jurisdiction is that has authority for that event. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So, and I agree with the misinformation because you do hear all kinds of things. It just takes one person to start talking about, somebody's house that got damaged or what, or misheard something. And so it's best to be careful in this kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
And so.
Well, now everybody has a Ring doorbell, which we found that out during Alexander Mountain Fire. People that were calling saying, I already know that my house is gone because somebody saw it on the Ring. My neighbors saw my house burning on their Ring camera. So a lot of that is already getting out, so. And we know people want information fast. It's just, so fast now, it's just hard to keep up. All right, questions or comments? Sheriff, do you have anything you want to say about it? Okay. All right. So really the changes to the plan are really that. It's just we moved to the Lifeline model, so we restructured the plans. I also cleaned up the plans a lot, like the EOP Camille did, and then the recovery plan, I took it from like 50 pages to 30, and that was really just cleaning it up and making it just more succinct. So that's what you're going to see. I sent both of the plans to you all for review. I'll try to go to the sheriff first to get signatures, and then I'll come before the board, unless the sheriff wants to come to the admin matters session where you guys all sign at one time. It's up to you guys. You guys can just let me know. But if you guys have questions about it, or if you guys want some extra time with the plans, let me know. But I'll go ahead and get that scheduled if you guys are comfortable with these changes, so that we can get these on the books. And then what's going to happen next is we're going to have to go through every one of our plans and just make sure that they're all in alignment now with these two big plans, and get rid of some of the redundancy that we have.
And then would we have to approve those other plans as well then as they get updated, or is that, or
You
is that,
guys
those are
approve-
more internal?
You guys approve the base plans.
Okay.
So the emergency operations plan, base plan, and the recovery plan, base plan, you guys approve. But then you guys don't sign off on all of the annexes that we have to that of how we're going to do that work. That's really more of the support agencies and us that sign off on those. It makes it easier instead of you guys having every time we change a contact number or something, you guys don't have to sign off on it.
Sure. Yeah, that could be tedious.
So there are 6 plans within our comprehensive emergency management plan. We have the emergency operations plan, recovery plan, which are those 2 that we're updating now. There's the hazard mitigation plan, which is a multi-jurisdictional plan. We're in the process right now of getting the funding from a BRIC grant, fingers crossed on that, to update that plan. And that is all the jurisdictions throughout Larimer County all sign on to the same plan. That's probably our biggest one. And then we have our preparedness plan, which talks about how we do training exercises and all of that. And then we have our resilience framework, which is out of date. So that's one of our strategic objectives that we're going to be working on, is to figure out, do we need that framework? Does it fall into some of the resilience work that the county's currently doing? How can we leverage that better? Or do we have some goals that we need to work on for resilience? We have the continuity of operations plan, and then we have the continuity of government plan. So all of those plans are the base plans that you guys sign off on. The rest of them are kind of, like I said, the annexes to those plans. But the COOP, continuity of operations plan, and the continuity of government plan are up to date. They don't need to be updated. The preparedness plan, I need to review it just to make sure it doesn't reference any of the stuff we're talking about today. And then the mitigation plan, like I said, that process is starting with Josh currently, and that's a year-long planning process with a contractor because it's a very technical plan. Other
Any questions? Commissioner Kafalis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, great work, excellent work, and I'm glad that what we've been doing on the ground, we're just making sure that how it's being identified at the federal level, we're aligning everything, so that makes an awful lot of sense. Question I have is to maybe follow up on what the commissioner said earlier, and that is, how are we informing the public that these public-facing dashboards are available? Is it they have to sign up for NOCO alert or the LIDA alerts, or how are we getting the word out? And are we seeing more and more people signing up for those kinds of alerts over the years?
So in your packet, I gave you guys the 2024 year in review, which I sent this to you guys at the beginning of January. Sorry. In front of you is the 2024 year in review, and at the top page, at the bottom of the top page, you can see that there were 47 partner engagements, 24 community outreach events, 21 preparedness presentations, and then we had 23 EOC trainings and exercises in 2024. That's how we're trying to get the information out, is just to go to whatever events we can, talk to the public about it. But then also Ricardo's work with public information management and outreach is also to just make sure that through social media, through our website, through any other means that we can, we try to get the information out to the public about kind of what we're working on and how they can get information during an event. So as we build these public-facing tools, it'll be in coordination with Kate Kimball and the Sheriff's Office with Public Information Management, because again, we don't own the response phase of public information. Usually that comes from the agency having jurisdiction. And then once it's recovery, then we take that over, and that's really Ricardo working with his bigger group of public information officers. So I don't know if Ricardo wanted to add anything to that.
I'm wondering, in relation to that, are we seeing a trend, more people signing up for these alerts?
Yes, we have seen more people signing up for the alerts. I don't have the numbers today, but we did do every year we do those metrics, and we haven't reported out on that with you guys this year yet. I don't know if we're still doing the performance measures with the board. We just didn't do that this last year. So we do have those numbers, and we do still have the numbers increasing every year. So I don't know if Ricardo, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, this is Ricardo Perez, Emergency Management Coordinator. Yeah, as Lori mentioned, there's a group of local public information officers, and obviously the Sheriff's Office public information officers are included in that group, but there's a coordination networking group that we can help in disseminating the information to the public. So that's one of the main ways, but obviously when there's an incident, we work together with the agency having jurisdiction and the public information officer to stand up a website, stand up kind of the content that's going out on social media. So anything that's going out to the public, there's basically a smaller group of public information officers making sure that we're thinking about the information that needs to be pushed out. So the information that's kind of be new with the dashboarding, kind of with those resources for the public, that smaller group can have that time to coordinate and then push it out effectively. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Shannock McNally, any questions?
Not at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
One question I have about pushing out to social media, like social media, there's a lot of different platforms, and some people have left certain platforms because of things. And so do you find yourself needing to use some of the additional platforms? Like I know a lot of people who've gone to Blue Sky or Threads or whatever. Do you feel like you have to sort of keep up with that, or do you feel like for people getting the notices that that's enough and you don't have to belong to all these platforms and push things out on all these different platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think just from looking at kind of the information that we've pushed out with our incidents and all the work with the U.S. Forest Service public information officers, the Larimer County Sheriff's Office public information officers, I think the website of Larimer County is a great source that people can go to and get that validated information that's ready for the public. There are multiple social media platforms that different agencies are using. And yeah, I think the Sheriff's Office has the tools that they use that are comfortable with the public that they've gotten used to. And same with kind of the Larimer County Public Affairs. But yeah, definitely the website is the trusted source. And then social media is usually a tool to get the information out and then push people to the website. So yeah, there's going to be multiple tools that people are usually looking at, and I know public information officers are constantly looking at what new tools people are using to receive information. So yeah, that's just a little bit of information about how we conduct the
No,
coordination.
that's great.
Of that.
And so we'll just tell the public, go to the website. That's your most trusted source. It's updated first. It's got the most complete information versus just a small tweet or a little blurb on social media.
But we do have to always be looking at what's the new stuff people are looking at, and can we send the message out there? But as Ricardo said, the more that we can push people to trusted sources. And we ask everybody every year in our resilience survey that we send out, how do you get your information? And over the last couple of years, LEDA and the Sheriff's Office have been kind of the top two, and the website is kind of being that highlight. So that's very good information. It tells us that people are going to the sources that they should be going to instead of going to, Nextdoor or wherever else, that might not have good information.
And communication through dance is pretty good. And Camille's running our TikTok and Snapchat. So
Excellent. Yeah, I totally approve.
Yes.
Interpretive
Yeah.
dance as a method of, we do want to reach people in all different kinds of mediums. And I think we're okay to, would we be seeing that on next Tuesday, a week from
I
tomorrow?
don't have the plan.
Yeah, whatever day she
For
picks, it'll be
adoption?
on your admin matters consent agenda since we've talked about it today
Okay.
at this work session.
Does
So-
I would guess I would ask the commissioners, do you need any more time than a week to? I mean, it is fairly concise, so, but I mean,
I do not, other than I did spot one typo, and I don't know if it's too late to
It's not
bring
too
that to
late.
your attention.
Hasn't been signed yet.
Very good.
Yeah, just let me know what that is and I'll grab it.
Commissioner Shannock McNally, are you okay for a week from tomorrow? I'm probably seeing it.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I think the only other consideration is, do you want to use that as an opportunity as we get into spring to talk about preparedness at all? So we could do the plan adoption as a discussion item, and then you could talk a little bit about how this fits into preparedness?
Yeah, that would be great. I'll get it on the agenda then for
So we'll have it
discussion.
as a discussion item.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea to remind folks about, being responsible and prepared. So, yeah, I
that'd
like
be
that.
good.
All right, great.
All right. Okay, so other than the plan, there's a couple things I want to talk about. One is we have done a kind of a strategic planning session for OEM to talk about more long-term, kind of 3 to 4 years, what we want to work on most. And so just a couple of the big things are, one of those is what we were kind of just talking about a little bit, which is outreach and education and doing a better job of telling our story. I think that government doesn't always do a good job of letting people know what government does. And so letting people know, that's what this year in review is really about, but letting people know what are we doing and what are we focused in on, and then what are their worries and concerns that we can then build our program on. And that's what that resilience survey is to help us with, is to get the feedback from the community to ask them the questions of what do they care about most, what do they think that we're doing right versus where do they think that we're missing the boat, and then how can we change our program. So telling our story outreach is kind of a big one for kind of the next 3 years. And that also includes kind of public relations and boosting EOC visibility. So you guys will be seeing shortly an EOC video. We had it filmed in our exercise that we had in December. So you'll see some Christmas decorations in the exercise. But it shows, most people don't really understand how many people are in the background trying to help emergency responders and the people in the field, and also help the community as a whole. So this tells the story of the EOC really well. So that is in draft form. There's just some tweaks that we're making to that this week. So that's coming out. And then we do, as we talked about with the resilience framework, we're going to have a pretty big goal around what our role is in resilience and how do we build that into our programs, look at that framework and see what we need to update there. We have the implementation of our plan to ensure that we're assisting those in our community that need the most assistance, those who don't have the right resources. So that's going to be coming up, the implementation and then institutionalization of that plan is coming up as well. We have a lot of stuff that we're doing with the Emergency Operations Center, as I already mentioned to you guys today, with more of the visual tools, more of the information that can get out to the public as well as to our partners about what's going on for common operating picture. We have been approached by Thompson Valley EMS and Johnstown for having their emergency managers in our building. So we're talking to them about whether, our building's kind of built out at this point, but is that possible to have them there? Because that would be great. It's, again, a regional emergency operations center. We love that our partners are coming to us now. So can we build that out? Supply chain remains a major focus of ours. That is not something you can do in 1 or 2 years. So we've had some interns work on a water plan for supply chain. We have a fuel plan now for supply chain. But as you can see from all these different lifelines, there's a ton more that we need to work through on each of those individual sectors. So that's a big one. We have some kind of finance and admin work that we'd like to do. We'd like to look at how we can leverage some of the administrative costs that we can get through grants to then leverage towards more grants for the community. So how do we use those percentages of cost to do that? And then we have a huge one around preparedness. Just, we're doing a lot in preparedness right now. Camille and Ricardo have done just a ton of work in this space. We'd like to see more of those education programs built out, more formalized, and then also working with our school districts and CSU. I don't know if you guys know this, but I've gotten a class approved for CSU in the fall. It's a resilience course that I'll be teaching in the fall for CSU. So that's another way that we can get information out to folks. And then we talked about starting the planning for a full-scale exercise for 2027, 2028 to try to figure out what that exercise will be. So those are some of our kind of bigger picture goals. We just had the discussion this morning about some of that, so we're going to write it all down and determine what those action items are for each of those goals. But we're going to redo our strategic plan this year because it expires at the end of the year. So that's kind of where we're at. So if you have questions, let me know. And then otherwise, I'll just let our team tell you anything else that they'd like to talk about today. I did want Cole to talk about the integrated emergency management curriculum because we're all going in April to give you guys an update and see what we need to do about that. But any questions before we go there?
Any questions? Commissioner Cavalls?
Not a substantive one, but I'm curious, the package that we got electronically on the cover page, there were some pretty compelling photographs, and I could identify where some of those, the wildfire picture, but that tornado picture, where'd that come from? Is that what was sent to us
Oh, on the plan?
on the plan? Yeah.
Oh, that's just a tornado picture. It's just the cover page. It
A
was-
stock tornado picture?
Probably, yeah. It could, maybe it's the Windsor tornado. I don't know if it is or not.
No.
I can't say it is. The Windsor one was very wide. It's a very distinctive
was-
picture, but yeah.
Thank you.
It was a fun picture though, right?
Fun and scary.
If you're into chasing tornadoes, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions?
Sorry.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate all of you and the work you do. You guys are exemplary people, and the work you do is exemplary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I'm going to pass it off to Cole, then talk IEMC first.
Okay. So I did send out some information regarding the IEMC last week. If you find yourself confused, it's you're not alone. So just reach out. There's probably 75 of us going and 75 of us that are that have to kind of muddle through that process. But it's the same thing we've all kind of have experience in doing from the last time. So we got to go through and register using the code. There's a whole bunch of information in that packet. If you guys find yourself confused, or if Melissa's helping, then have her or yourselves reach out and we'll kind of work that process together. The only thing that's really different is that now there is a prerequisite that you do have to complete prior to even registering. Because I believe you have to submit the certificate of completion of this course on your while registering for the IEMC, and that is essentially like a code of conduct type class that says how you'll behave when you're at this when you're on site. So it's not too bad, but you have to do that beforehand. It's fairly easy. I'm confident you guys can pass. So. Yeah. Well, So,
But you'll want to do your registration pretty quick.
yeah, for sure. And more information will be coming soon, but that is still planned for, that's April 28th through May 2nd or May 1st, and then you can come back the 1st or the 2nd. So usually, I think flying out the 27th, which is a Sunday, coming back either the 1st or the 2nd. And that's still the plan. It's still ongoing. We have reached out to FEMA to ask them if any of the the changes in federal government, or if those those programs might impact us going. And we've been told no, that they've been given the go ahead for all of that this year. So we're going to continue planning to go. So but that's kind of it for IEMC. And so just let me know as you kind of go through that packet. But please, we're going to try to get that done pretty quick. But it should be a good exercise. I think it'll be a lot more enjoyable for us all now that we have had Alexander Mountain Fire. I think that'll be a good thing for us to look back on as we're doing this exercise, and that'll make more sense when you're out there. But it'll be a good time with everyone who goes. So looking forward to that. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about wasn't necessarily in the strategic plan that we discussed, but there has been a lot of communication, kind of with planning, I guess, and that's the COOP that Lori mentioned. It while the base COOP plan is up to date, there's a lot of discussion about continuity of operations right now. And right now, kind of the COOP plan is owned by Larimer County OEM. We kind of do it, but there hasn't been a whole lot of ownership from other departments and things. But right now, that's changing. There's a lot of desire and just to be more heavily involved with, especially like IT and others. So we're kind of working through where can the COOP live, how can it be more easily accessed by other departments, and because I think now a lot of folks are really starting to see, obviously, the implications of a COOP event as we've gone through COVID, and with how tied in IT is to literally every thing that happens here at the county government, and also facilities and things like that, which have been detailed in our COOP plan, but it's always kind of been like hey, this is OEM's document that we have to kind of provide our input on, where I think we're really working to change that. So this is this is our, whatever department you are, this is our COOP document that's going to have a little bit more information about how we get through stuff. And we're seeing that now with changes in, funding from federal government, and we can use things like the COOP, which is, I think, why we're getting a big, a lot of interest from people and wanting to update those plans so that way they can, reference those from things like, COVID to things like funding to whatever else that may come up. So that's something that we're going to be working on a lot this year as well.
With regard to that, we do have a meeting with the budget office, I think it's today, later this afternoon, to talk about how we can utilize the continuity of operations plan for the federal funding discussions that are currently going on. What are the requirements, right? What are the regulations that we have to do? What's state statute versus what's federal? And if we lost any funding stream of any kind, how then does that impact other systems and processes? So we offered that up to the budget office because I know they're doing a ton of work in that space already, but how can we utilize the continuity of operations plan to ensure that we have all that documented? So if we do see some disruptions, we already have a plan moving forward about how that's going to impact the county. So that's just one example of how we can use that. All right, anybody else have an update they'd like to share?
Good morning. This is Camille Millard here, a Preparedness and Resiliency Coordinator for Larimer OEM. I just wanted to give a quick update on some of the preparedness events that we have coming up because I've seen it kind of be a thread throughout all of this. We have been partnering with our library systems here, so we have a couple of educational opportunities coming through the Fort Collins Library and then Loveland Library also. So offering how to prepare for everything classes and then that Dare to Prepare curriculum that we have. We also have our own Dare to Prepare curriculum happening March 22nd, and we've been coordinating with Tom and Michelle on getting that pushed out on our social medias. And then, like always, planning some fun events for September. Ricardo and I partner on the Hero Fest event. And then we are, in collaboration doing our annual evacuation drill again, except last year was a real evacuation. So this year, I swear, just an exercise. But we're working again with Glacier View because we had to cancel due to Pearl Fire. So all that planning process is pretty much solidified. And so we're adding more layers. I'd like to reach out to the Sheriff's Office and Emergency Services on some extra stuff we want added this year. But yeah, just getting it all laid out on the calendar. So we have a bunch of preparedness things coming up, and I'll probably be reaching out to y'all as the year goes on to have y'all come and speak to the community and give that opportunity for that one-on-one interaction. So thank you.
Hey, good morning. Josh Roberts, Mitigation Coordinator, OEM. A couple of really the three target projects kind of on deck and in the plans for this upcoming year. One is to continue execution of those grant-funded projects that we have underway currently, as well as some of the new ones that we've been awarded, and we hope to be able to start those substantively soon this year. It kind of just depends on some of the wait and see with respect to the memos and federal funding freezes and things. The next one is our community mitigation grant. So we've got currently the fourth cycle, so the 2025 cycle of our community mitigation grant program. Application period's open now. It'll close on March the 9th, I believe. So looking forward to working with some neighborhoods this year on that program. And then, of course, as Lori mentioned, our hazard mitigation plan update is this year. So we'll probably kick that off in a real way in May once we get past the procurement stages and things. So that's what we kind of have on the docket as far as our mitigation program goes.
Hi, Lauren Barnes, Office Manager for OEM. I do a lot of random things, but one of them is we have established a call center. We actually utilized that call center during the Alexander Mountain Fire, and we are now building a mobile call center that is going to be utilized by partners throughout Larimer County and potentially beyond that if needed. But right now, we have been working with the city of Loveland, Fort Collins, as well as CSU has used the call center in the past to kind of develop a mainstream of how we're going to utilize it in the future, what it looks like standing it up possibly remotely, as well as with all of our mobile devices that we can travel with. But currently, we are working on the language, have a just a general language that we can use that we can then update depending on the incident that we have going on. But then how can those partners maybe link into our system already to where if they have a component of an issue during an incident, our public can choose an option to reach somebody within the city of Fort Collins and go through their programs that they need for anything along that lines. We are also looking at something that we discussed today is having different levels of the call center to stand it up kind of similar to the EOC. When an incident starts, what does the call center look like? Do we have it just one line? And then we can build it out to 8 lines. And then we can also build it out to go to the JIC through Larimer County or even Fort Collins, City of Loveland. So there'll be a lot of different options with that. That's still in the beginning phases. I have a meeting in April with our partners to talk about staffing a call center as well as the needs that they might have within their community to utilize the call center. And Lori will tag a team on that.
And just as a reminder, the call center is for specific needs. It's not the number that people call for regular information. That's through public information officers and the Joint Information Center. So the call center would be, hey, we have damages now. So people can call the call center for damage assessments, or we're doing reunification. So for whatever reason, the incident requires us to do reunification, and people are calling saying, hey, where's, my cousin Johnny or whatever. So it's a specific tasks. What we talked about this morning is using it for more of those shelter operations at the beginning of an event where we don't really know if a shelter's needed and you might have only 1 or 2 people that need something. They can contact the call center and they can get direct support from us instead of having to have us open a whole shelter and then nobody ever shows up and you have all this staff that's sitting around there. So we're trying to streamline some of our processes for, we activate quite a bit during the summer for small fires. We activate and then we set up a shelter. It might be better for us to have resources and phone numbers available for people to get them to the right place instead of doing that. So that's just, I wanted to make sure that was clear, that it's not to duplicate anything going on at the Joint Information Center. That's your basic information, random questions. This is for a specific need. The JIC can then send them, or the dispatch center, they get all those calls too. They can now send them specifically to the call center to get those questions answered.
So it's people that are really affected by what the emergency
Correct, for a specific,
directly affected.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we might have damages and reunification going on at the same time. The call center would then divide up and conquer there. But it takes that burden off of the Joint Information Center to try to handle that stuff. And really, the sheriff and I are working on damage assessments jointly anyway. So having that funnel into the Emergency Operations Center makes the most sense for us. All right, do you have anything?
Ricardo Perez again. Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about the some of the work that we've been doing kind of in 2024, more as it relates to access and functional needs. So in 2024, we updated a plan that helps provide accessible resources to those that need it most in Larimer County before, during, and after disasters. So one of those initiatives that we started last year was to facilitate an access and functional needs working group. Access and functional needs is basically any functional need that a person needs to function in a disaster. So basic needs. So we facilitated a group of non-government organizations, people with lived experience, and emergency management partners, just to make sure to get kind of a wide sense of what would the community need if there was an evacuation or sheltering. So one of the main things that the Access and Functional Needs Working Group has been working on kind of over this last year is thinking about shelters and how are they accessible to people? How do we provide accessible resources and information during evacuations and sheltering? So that's going to be something that OEM continues to facilitate, kind of a group of folks with lived experience that we can work with community members, not for them, so that the solutions are actually meet the needs that they have. So yeah, that's what we're going to be focusing in as well, strengthening those relationships with people that actually need the resources and the non-government organizations that can help us kind of provide that information as well. But yeah, a lot of teamwork happening. Camille and I are doing work with multiple partners around that, but yeah, that's going to continue over the next time.
And we're very glad to have Ricardo back after being gone for a bit.
Yes, good to have you back. Questions, Commissioner? Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions?
No, thank you. I appreciate all the information. Thank you.
So Ricardo, can I ask a question? So, were we finding that there wasn't a good deal of accessibility? Were there folks that struggled in the last, situation with the kind of sheltering that we had set up and things like that? Or were there people that were hard to get out of their homes?
Well, the resilience survey that we've sent out over the last few years has stated pretty dramatically that people don't think we have resources available for people with disabilities or otherwise. So when we saw that, I think it was like 75%. It was a big number the first year. It's gone down this last year, but still there's over a majority of people who respond to that survey don't believe the services are available. So it's our job to figure out, are the services there and people just don't know how to access them? Or do we really not have that service available to them? So that's what Ricardo has really spent a lot of time working on over the last year or two, is to figure out for people with disabilities or people with any other access functional needs, what are those needs? Do we know how to get the information to the right people? That's where those non-government partners come in, with getting them to the table, because they can spread that information. And then if there is a gap, what is the gap and can we fill it? And that's where I think the sheltering came in. So I don't know if Ricardo has anything else you want to say about that.
Yeah, and then so we've been working with the American Red Cross, because they're the ones that operate the shelters when we activate them, and they've been really helpful in helping us walk through, like, what are the needs of people when we actually have a shelter. So they've been crucial in kind of sharing from their perspective, this is where we've done an awesome job and this is where there's room for improvement. So kind of that access and functional needs working group almost serves like a group of subject matter experts around accessibility. So it's been a good collaboration of kind of in that group to be able to just make the services a little bit more effective and better.
That's great. I think I remember somebody maybe had some memory issues and so there's all kinds of people come from all different kinds of backgrounds as they gather in these shelters or have to be evacuated, right? And so I think that you don't know what you're dealing with to a certain extent until you see, what kind of folks. But we know that we have aging populations in a lot of these mountain communities too, and so that's something that I'm sure you're obviously aware of. But that can often come with mobility issues and memory loss issues and other things. So.
Yeah, and in both Cameron Peak Fire and Alexander Mountain Fire, after the fact, we heard of people sleeping in their cars because they didn't know that a shelter was available. So how do we make sure that the information gets to the right people? And then we had, people who might be homebound, right? That during Cameron Peak, we were able to match them up with an assisted living center that was able to take care of them during the evacuation. But if we don't know about that and we don't have those resources available to get to them, they're not going to know that they can call us and say, hey, we can't evacuate. This person's on a ventilator and can't be moved. They're bedbound. And then we need to call an ambulance for them, or we need to call other care system, right? So just knowing some of that stuff has helped us. But it's usually after the fact that we hear about it, where we could have helped them. We had a service. We just didn't know how to connect those two things. So trying to solve some of those problems. And our motto at our office is doing the most good for those who need it most. And we're really trying to focus in on that, because a lot of people in our community have a lot of really good resources. They don't go to a shelter because they have friends or family, or they can stay at a hotel and they'd rather stay at a hotel. But there's people in our community, though, that might not have those resources, that we want to hone in on that just to make sure that everybody's getting, the right public safety services that they need.
No, I appreciate that. That's really good work. Thank you for talking about that. Commissioner.
Thank you. Just very quickly, the discussion about accessibility prompts me to add this comment for everyone's consideration, and that is, when we talk about mobility challenges or perhaps memory loss challenges, it's also, I think, important to consider people who may have sensory issues, or perhaps who are on the autism spectrum. And it just dawned on me that if folks like that are going into a Red Cross shelter and there might be 50 people gathered, that might be a little bit challenging. But you all are thinking about stuff like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Yeah, that's definitely been a discussion point of that access and functional needs working group. Yeah.
Okay.
Great
Thanks,
point.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, no, it seems like you're always thinking about, you're always anticipating the next need, and we appreciate that. Lauren, is there anything you want to add?
I guess I'll just from a financial perspective, this is the group that works with our finance team to manage that Fund 105, which is where we pay for things that happen in a disaster. And I want to give Lauren a ton of kudos for the work you've done, really looking at where are we in terms of reimbursements. I think we could run a report now and feel very, very comfortable about that. All the paperwork was there before, but we couldn't separate one incident from another very easily. It was a manual process. And now working with finance, she's really come up with a good system. So when you all say, what did that disaster cost us? We'll be able to tell you by packaging all that together that we got from the state, from the federal government, from our partners, and really demonstrate to a community what the disaster does cost.
Yeah, because of all the work that Lauren and our finance department have done, as well as with a number of different departments, we do now have like a master spreadsheet that is going to be updated all the time, where at any point, if I get I get stuff from the media all the time, hey, what's the status of this fund? It's going to be much easier than it was before, because before we had departments in and out of that fund all the time. And we've now kind of locked that down so that we can have we know what's coming and going from the fund now. But we also have that master spreadsheet that is all of the different disasters, what the status is of each one, where are different payments coming from, because in some cases we owe the federal government money, in other cases the federal government owes us money or the state owes us money. So just having a good look at all of that. So yes, definitely kudos to our finance team and to Lauren for kind of spearheading that, because that's been a major source of frustration for me over the years.
Yeah, that's great work. Thank you. Sheriff, is there anything you'd like to add before? We need you to get in front of a mic, though.
I got a loud voice. Okay, so absolutely. So John Fan, Larimer County Sheriff. And I'm going to take a historical perspective. When Lori mentioned at the very beginning that it's been 11 years since she's been in her office, that where we, Larimer County, has come in those 11 years. I remember as a young deputy walking by, at the time, OEM was in the sheriff's office, was one individual, and how over time, hard-earned scars and hard-earned lessons in the community, right, for whatever reason, we seem to be the epicenter of a lot of not wonderful things that happen. But just that synergy that we have in our community now with Lori and the crew that Lori has built around her, with Lita and Kimberly Cope and the group that they have built, the support of the commissioners and my team with Justin Weitzel and Tim Keaton and Under Sheriff Shellhammer. We've learned the hard way, but I can't think that there's any place I'd rather be in all of Colorado if something bad has to happen in the community, because I know that there's the infrastructure, people have thought about it, and they care about what happens to the citizens here. So I'm very fortunate to be a small part of that, so thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, I think that was a good note to close on. Thank you again for all your work. We really appreciate you. We know you're all doing multiple things to protect our community and to keep people safe, so we're grateful for that. So it is 10:57, and we'll adjourn. Thank you all.